Hey everybody, it's Jay here, and YouTube is 20 years old. My goodness, how time flies. For this video, I want to talk about YouTube memories over the years. So, I started this channel in 2019, but I have been watching YouTube for pretty much since it came out, in 2005. I remember, okay, the first time I ever experienced YouTube, I was at a friend's house and he wanted to show me a video called Donald Duck, Der Fuhrer's Face, because he was trying to show me, old, 1940s World War II era Disney cartoons. And he was like, dude, you're not going to believe this. There was a cartoon where Donald Duck is marching around and he's dressed up like a Yahtzee. And I'm like, no, there isn't. That wasn't a real thing. So he Googles, Donald Duck in Yahtzee uniform, and it goes over to YouTube. And sure enough, because, YouTube copyright wasn't what it was now back then, the full cartoon was right there. You could watch it. It actually might still be up. Let me know if you type Donald Duck, Der Fuhrer's Face, if the cartoon pops up and it's got that song by Spike, I think it was by Spike Jones. So I was like, damn, what is this? What is this site? And back then it was very different, YouTube, right? It wasn't owned by Google back then. There were no ads. Ads didn't exist. That wasn't a thing. So you could just look it up, and it was really cool content, to be honest. It wasn't full of like life coaches and grifters and all the stuff that make YouTube kind of annoying these days, right? It was more so the videos were definitely not as of high quality, but that's kind of where the charm came from, right? Like, I don't know if you guys remember Smash My GameCube. That was a good one, where the guy plays the prank on his brother, makes him think he smashed his GameCube. They actually interviewed those people 20 years later. There was a recent 20 years later interview. It's the one where he tells the kid, that wasn't really your GameCube, and the kid's like, where is it? And he slows it down and he goes, where is it? That was definitely a video that I watched like a couple of times. And it was mostly just really bad editing, right? It was just people using Windows Movie Maker. I mean, hell, like nowadays I just use Clipchamp, right? Once in a while you'd happen upon a really well edited video, and you could tell that, they paid for some big name software like Sony Vegas or something like that. That was the big editing software back in the day. I actually knew a guy in my school who had the Sony Vegas full suite, and I was kind of amazed by what you could do with it. And even back then I was like, damn, I really want to make some content. But it never really came to fruition back then, right? Because, life gets in the way, and you plan to make a video and it's just like, I gotta go do this thing, right? I mean, hell, I was in high school, I was big on running track back then. Want to make sure you're doing well in school and stuff. So, but definitely, I was definitely a big YouTube watcher over the years. It was a big thing. When I found the Angry Video Game Nerd, that was an awesome channel. Back then, you forget, like, yes, the videos were on Screw Attack, but his channel started, it was on, he was still the Angry Nintendo Nerd back then until I guess Nintendo threatened to sue him. Shocking, right? Like, pretty on form for Nintendo. So he changed it to the Angry Video Game Nerd, but I'd wait for his new videos to drop. I actually think his old content was a lot funnier than his content now. Another big one, the Nostalgia Critic. He's still going, by the way. I haven't watched his channel in a while. I know I think he used to be on Channel Awesome, but the Nostalgia Critic, Doug Walker, I would watch his reviews every week. It was basically like waiting for a new episode of your favorite show to come out, but it was like bite-sized content. So that was really cool. And then, of course, I know that it has existed since before YouTube, and I want to do a review of it sometime. But Pure Ownage was an awesome internet show from Canada. I always found it hilarious that the guy that plays Jeremy was actually, I think he's a chemistry professor now, and he's playing like this gamer culture guy who's like, Kyle, what's up and stuff, bro? So it was pretty. That was one that I loved to watch on YouTube. I'd wait for the new episode of that to drop as well. I definitely think that the content was more creative back then. I definitely think that people weren't trying to appeal to be friendly towards advertisers. So, and again, right? Like I know nowadays, even now, I was recently monetized. Something I did not think would have been possible years ago, right? Like obviously, and I'm not making a lot of money from this. I think I made like $10 so far. What do you do? This is not this is a hobby, not something I'm going to do for a living. But I was like, yeah, people back then did not have to appeal to advertisers, so they could pretty much just say what was on their mind, and definitely the comedy factor too. Like I don't know if you guys remember Chad Warden. That I love that he was the biggest troll for the time. I think it's funny too because that guy grew up to be an investment banker, and somebody saw him at like a sushi restaurant. And they were like, "Chad Warden, sup, bitches." Chad Warden was a good one. Oh, the guy that the three PS3s guy. There was like this guy who was doing like a faux British accent, and he was like, because it doesn't matter, for you see, I have three PS3s. That was when that was like in I think it was '07 when the PS3 launched, right? And it was known for being very expensive for the time anyway. I want to say it was like it cost like $550 like US retail, and everybody was like blown away by how expensive the thing was. I didn't have one, by the way. I had the Wii, but yeah, that was a good one. Um, People make videos out of like memes and stuff. Like I actually remember when they unveiled the PS3, they were talking about like the like feudal Japan, right? And like the guy presenting was like at E3, he was like, yeah, and realistic scenes of feudal Japan with the samurai and giant enemy crabs. So, and of course, everybody started laughing, and that became a meme like giant enemy crab. Um, there were videos like with people making, about why their console is better than every other console, right? You had the Wii, PS3, Xbox 360 console war, and you get everybody's takes on, why they like their console the best. That was always fun to see. You had people make, montages, of course. You had people making montages of themselves playing games. Years of War, Call of Duty, back then, like, Halo, Halo 2, Halo 3, they'd have, like, my, like, no-scope montage, and it would have, some, like, grunge song from the early 2000s, right? And it would just be them, like, getting their 360 no-scopes. So those provided hours and hours of entertainment. Also, like, YouTube copyright was in, like, its infancy. So I remember, like, they didn't really take down videos, but they would silence a video, right? If it was copyright, they would just turn the sound off. So watching it became effectively useless. That was like one of the first forms of copyright control, because I guess what had happened was the people who hold the copyright would, report it to YouTube, and they were probably threatening lawsuits, was my guess. So YouTube had to act in some way, but didn't really anticipate like how much copyright content would be uploaded. Just shows, entire episodes of shows that obviously, they were not authorized to show, right? You're just uploading it for free at that point. So definitely, like things were way different back then. Then there was also like the early comedy on YouTube. Like I remember watching Dom Mazzetti, and I love Jenna Marbles. She retired. She's out of the game now, but I did find her content really funny as well. That was like the early 2010s. That was always good stuff. And then, of course, what's interesting, I got to tell you what's very interesting is, if you check out the channel Thumbs Up Master, right, I've talked to the guy who runs it. His name is Joe, very nice guy. He's actually been on a couple of my streams. I thought that was so crazy because it was like 10 years later, right? In like 2006, I was watching his content. He made these videos on one of my favorite games from the 90s, Banjo-Kazooie. The video was called Banjo-Kazooie, rated E, ? And it showed like all these adult jokes hidden within the game. And at the time, that video got like 500,000 views. I think it has more than 1 million views now. Don't quote me on that, but like his early videos actually made like the front page of YouTube. Like it was some of the best like gaming content going for the time. So like 10 years later, he like drops a Discord, and I'm actually like talking to the guy, and I'm like, that's pretty crazy because, like, we live on opposite sides of the country, and I used to watch your content. Like, that's what I know you from. I know you from, like, your videos from, like, 10 years ago. And obviously, his channel isn't getting the same traffic as it got back then. And he could have been a YouTube partner back then. Because they've had YouTube partners since, I want to say, like 2010 or 2011. That's when they started really, like, paying content creators. But it's existed for a long time. He definitely had, like, way more than the needed views to get it. It would have been, I think, because he stopped uploading for a while. But it was awesome content. It was really creative for what it was during the time. And I thought that was pretty cool that, I'm like, wow, I'm actually talking to the guy who made something I probably spent, hours watching back in the day. It's just funny how life works out like that, right? So I guess the reason I'm making this video is because YouTube has been kind of like an integral part of my life for like the past 20 years. I mean, if you think about it, like, there's been a lot of things that have changed our lives, since we were kids, right? Like, for example, just, having a smartphone, right? If you would have showed me a smartphone when I was 10 years old and told me that, you could have a video chat with somebody on the other side of the world, in 1080p, not that I would have known what 1080p was when I was a child, I would have crapped my pants, or I would have laughed at you. I would have just not thought it was possible, not thought it was realistic. Because, back then, you got to remember how far we've come from, 56K modems and then DSL. Even that when YouTube came out, there were definitely limitations on the videos. I'm sure we were measuring, what you could upload in megabytes, not gigabytes. Because, and I do remember too, you couldn't post a video that was longer than 10 minutes unless you were a quote unquote director. Because I had friends who were posting back then, and we made like a video together and it was over 10 minutes and they were like, oh, you're not a quote unquote director. And I forget what the requirements were to be a director. But it was something you had to have a certain number of uploads, a certain number of subscribers. But this was back in like 2007. So would love to find like I would love to find his channel too, because I was in some of those videos. But I think it's been since deleted. Another big memory was YouTube poops. And a lot of those are still up. There was a guy named Walrus Guy. He was making like YouTube poops out of like old Sonic cartoons, like those horrendous CDI Zelda games. And Billy Mays, of course, was the subject of plenty of YouTube poops. I still remember Billy Mays, Billy Mays' Suicide Putty, the Big City Toilet. Those were all classics. I actually remember like sitting in like the library at school and getting in trouble because we were watching those videos instead of doing homework. And I guess the librarian came over and didn't appreciate that too much and like kicked me and my friends out of the library. But yeah, so anyway, I know I'm rambling on about this, but yeah, it's crazy to think YouTube is 20 years old. This is something we've had now for 20 years, and it's definitely changed life, right? Because you remember when we were kids and had 56K modems, you couldn't watch a full-length video. If you wanted to watch a 5-minute video, that took 10 minutes to load. It just wasn't tenable to like watch a lot of videos. And now it's at the point where it's almost an overload. You ever go on YouTube and like you're like, there's a lot of things in your queue that you want to watch. And actually, like my watch later, I now have exceeded my maxed playlist size. So I got to go back and like delete some stuff out of it, because you'll see something, you're like, oh, that's interesting, I want to watch that, but I don't have time right now. I want to watch it later. So what I'll do now is like I'll click on the video and like play it for 30 seconds so that it's in my recently watched. And then, I'll be like, okay, I'll have free time in like 2 hours. So I'll save it in the queue and then I'll watch it, when I have like downtime or whatever. That's what it's come to, right? Because you're just like overloaded by choice, and the brain wasn't made to have that much choice. So, well, anyway, guys, that's my take on 20 years of YouTube. Let me know in the comments below. What is your first memory of YouTube? What was the first video that you saw on YouTube? Was it YouTube poops? Was it old cartoons, like in my case? Was it Scatman videos? Remember Scatman videos? They'd have like people playing Super Mario 64 with Scatman John playing in the background. Man, those were the days. All right. Anyway, guys, this has been Jay Tahoe. Like this video if you liked what I had to say. Subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye, everyone.